Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome everyone to Before Coffee. It's Wacky and Weird Wednesday as we cover the wacky and weird news we have been able to find in the headlines today. Now, there is some wild stuff going on in the world, and some of it isn't so great for us, and some of it is good for us. But let's go ahead and get started with that. This is Before Coffee, the comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where me and my dad wake up, have had no caffeine, and we're going to read you new stories as we drowsily get along with our day. So,
like a cold slap in the face.
Yep. So let's wake up and get into those headlines. Today on Before Coffee, Cosenza, the couple that had attempted to kidnap another newborn, and the story before. Teenager who 3D printed an assault gun in Scotland is now sentenced.
And we have two different stories about meteorites hitting things and people finding them almost immediately.
France spearheaded a successful effort to dilute the EUA regulation.
And drug-addicted rats. That's right. In Houston are eating evidence, and genetically modified pigs might save your life.
Orgies, vampires, and jewel-laden tortoises. It's time we buried the myths of decadence in art.
All those wonderful stories and more on National Polkadot Day, January 22nd, 2025 on Before Coffee.
We are going to be covering some lovely stories that are totally people being weird out there, like kidnapping newborns. At least I think that's weird and wacky. This is by Romana Marcesa on La Repubblica. Rosa Vespa and Aqua Moses, the couple arrested and transferred to the Castro Villari prison for kidnapping a little Sofia, has already attempted to take another newborn away from Sacro Curo Clinic in Cosenza. A few minutes before they took Sofia, just 1 day old, in their arms, they had attempted to kidnap another newborn, as reported by Quotidiano del Sud. The time, too, pretending to be a nurse, Rosa Vespa, 53, had asked the other mother if a diaper change was needed, but the mother said no. The couple was looking for a baby boy. A few hours earlier on social media, they had announced the birth of Ansel. For 9 months, they had faked the pregnancy. Then they kidnapped Sofia, staging a pediatric visit. They dressed her in blue and took her to the baptism party, already underway in Castro Libiero. That's great. What? Wow, that's wild. Crazy planning. They're like, okay, we're going to get a kid and then go to baptism, and then it's going to be our kid because it's been baptized. I don't know if the plan was there. The research that is... Oh, okay. 3 hours of anxiety and terror for the little girl's family that ended with the discovery of the little girl in Castro Libiero, and Sofia's mother finds the strength a few hours later to thank all of Calabria took action for her little girl. You are writing to me in thousands from every part of Italy. I would like to respond individually to everyone, but I can't. This is our family that last night was crumbling into 1,000 pieces. Valeria Chiappetta, Sofia's mother, wrote, accompanying with a photo where there is a husband, her other son, and Sofia sleeping peacefully. The police did an exceptional job, continues the woman. While I had lost hope, an entire city, a ravaged region, stopped to look for our little girl. I don't think I'll ever get over this, but the happy ending is that Sofia is fine. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. I would like to have every single person, a mother and father who died and rose again yesterday. Well, they still had a son.
Oh man, that's cold.
Yeah, we stopped being a mother and father yesterday. Wait, what about your son? It doesn't matter. It's all about Sofia. Oh, I'm sure it's just a bad translation. I did translate this from Italian, so yeah.
Like, Mom, I just learned how to tie my shoe. Aren't you proud of me? Who are you? Anyway,
nothing like Sofia. Little Sofia, taken to the clinic in an ambulance, escorted by the police to return to her parents, was then transferred in the evening to hospital in Cosenza to check on her health. Yes, this is a real story. This actually happened. The couple is under arrest, having been identified a few hours thanks to the video surveillance images of the clinic. The flying squad and the police headquarters are reconstructing the genesis of that kidnapping. Perhaps a desired pregnancy that never came. I hope that turned into obsession. On Facebook, Rosa Vespa wrote on December 31st at 11:55 p.m., "I don't want a year full of amazing and fascistic things. I want a year that is finally peaceful, made of small, simple, and concrete things. I want a year like the old days, where getting up in the morning wasn't like we were facing another war, but a new day. I want a year with more peace, less pain and anger and full of health. A more peaceful and truer year. Happy 2025. The suspicion that the couple lost a child when the pregnancy was already advanced, that is one idea, a hypothesis the investigators are working on. Now Rosa Vespa and her husband are under arrest and probably going to jail. The whole city is probably going to jail. The whole city is breathing a sign of relief for the happy conclusion of the serious episode of kidnapping of a little girl from the clinic in Cosenza, which had thrown her parents and our entire community into despair." This is what the mayor of Cosenza, Franz Caruso, wrote on Facebook about the story of the newborn who was kidnapped. "If the little girl had been returned to her parents, we owe it to the police commissioner Giuseppe Canizzaro and the men of the Cosenza mobile squad," adds Caruso, who, with the great timelessness and without wasting a minute, have poured great energy and ability into finding the little girl immediately. "To them, I express the feelings of deepest gratitude of our entire community." A long series of posts containing insults, offenses, and in some cases threats appeared on the Facebook profile for Rosa Vespa, the woman arrested last night, with her husband Aqua Moses, 43, for kidnapping the one-day-old baby girl abducted. Under the post, in which, on January 8th, the woman announces the birth of her son Ansel after dozens of congratulatory messages, offensive posts, and some threats began yesterday evening. "You kidnapped a little girl! Life imprisonment is not enough for you! I hope you're brought in jail! Mentally ill! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! I hope you get an exemplary sentence," are some of the messages left by users. Yeah, I think that they could go for...
Everybody's impotent rage at once.
They could be going for, she had some sort of some sort of mental... Maybe it was mental illness.
Postpartum depression.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe she had several miscarriages. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea the investigators are going into, that maybe she was just so distraught. She thought of a genius plan. I'll kidnap a baby. That will make me feel right in the world. For more things that is really happened, a Scottish, I think teenager, or maybe a man. A Scottish man 3D printed an assault gun in his bedroom. This is from Jade Bradley on The Scotsman. The man was sentenced 300 hours of unpaid work, so he didn't go to jail. He could go to jail if he does again, maybe. The man who used a 3D printer to assemble a deadly assault gun in his bedroom has been ordered to carry out 300 hours of unpaid work. Police discovered the homemade semi-automatic weapon during a search on May 2023 of the house of James Morris, 19. Okay, so he was actually a teenager at the time, but now he's a man. He's grown up since then. Shared with his parents in Monarch, Perthshire. After they also found ammunition capable of being fired from the gun, known as an FGC-9. Mars was sentenced at the High Court in Edinburgh on Tuesday, the 21st of January, after he pleaded guilty to 4 firearms sentences. A community payback order was also imposed, which places Mars under supervision for a period of 3 years. Moria Orr, who leads on major crime for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, COPFS, said, "James Morris has been convicted of a serious crime. The sentence should act as a deterrent to others who are engaged in this sort of criminal activity. The manufacture of a viable 3D printed firearm is a real threat, and as prosecutors, we robustly pursue those who have involved in assembling them. This case underlines our commitment to continued working with the police and other agencies to ensure the crimes of this nature are detected and those responsible prosecuted using all measures at our disposal." The court heard how police, acting on intelligence, found 3D printed firearm components during the search of Morris's bedroom. These included a hammer, a magazine, a catch, trigger, safety, grip, and a buffer assembly, which had been ordered online to allow him to manufacture a semi-automatic rifle. They also found a 3D printer, which his parents had given him as a Christmas present. So that's how he's able to afford a 3D printer. We're talking about this before the show started. His parents gave him one, and he was like, "You know what I'm going to do with this baby?" as well as tools and items that can be used to manufacture of 3D printed firearms. Mars admitted to the officers that he had fascination with firearms and that he purchased the 3D gun parts online from his laptop. You wanted to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. You're raising your mic like you wanted to say something. Could you also move your camera over? Because you're not in the center. You're off to the side. I just noticed. Yeah, there you go. But that's my story on the gun-toting Scots teenager who didn't actually do anything with it. I don't think he even finished assembling the gun. There was a picture of it in
People up
mostly...
to no good.
It's mostly just the... what do you call that part? The firing part of a gun. The firing mechanism. There's no barrel. There's no anything else. It's just the mechanism, the trigger mechanism, I guess, that is built in the picture. So there you go.
Which is basically what a gun is.
Yeah.
You know, right? It's a trigger
but
chamber.
It's not really going to assault rifle anyone.
A barrel. That's in a buffer assembly.
Yeah.
That's about it.
But there's my stories on kidnappings and 3D printed guns.
Right on. And you're doing with the humans and their malfeasance. We're going to deal, as we typically do in my segment, is go to outer space and talk about meteorites. We have two different meteorites. We have one at a car windshield. The headline says, this is from goodnewsnetwork.org, which that's some good news, but it's not really good news. It's just weird news. When car's windshield is smashed, clever son spots nearby rock and discovers a meteorite is culprit. Yeah. A family woke up and found their car windshield with a hole in it.
Oh.
That's right. But their curious son soon cracked the mystery. Paul Butler and his family were watching TV the night before when they heard a loud bang outside, but dismissed the noise as holiday fireworks and went to bed. The next morning, they noticed the car's windows was shattered, but their 12-year-old son discovered a small black shiny rock nearby that didn't match any of the other stones. The eagle-eyed Nathan put a magnet next to the rock, revealing it was magnetized, a telltale sign the stone probably plummeted to Earth from outer space. I was looking around the ground near the car, and right in front of the wheel was a black rock that stood out from all the others, Nathan told SWNS News. I wonder if it could possibly be the meteorite, but I wasn't sure until we used a magnet and researched it online. His 55-year-old father said it had a strange shape and looked like it had been burned. Well, yeah. It's the only logical explanation for what caused the damage because it wasn't there when the car drove into the driveway. The impact looked like it splintered the glass, which was inside the car and covering the dashboard of the driver's seat. The family took the car to a nearby repair garage in Stratford-upon-Avon, England, which is actually where, of course, William Shakespeare is from, where they delighted in explaining the billionth one cause of the damage. And this goes on to how to identify what a meteorite looks like. Nathan plans to take the space rock into Myton School in Warwick to show off its classmates. Meanwhile, Paul quipped, when we found out it was a 1,000,000,000 chance of a meteorite hitting a car in our driveway, we started buying lottery tickets. So there's a cool story about a near miss if they had been, hitting their driveway. We got another story about a meteorite hitting a driveway. Very strange day indeed. Well, they love
they hate driveways, Meteorites and driveways go way back.
This happened in England. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, in Canada, a man's home security camera captures the sight and sound of a meteorite strike. And this popped up in the news recently, although it happened in July. This is from NPR.org. Chandler's Duster. His last name is Duster, or her last name. Duster, great last name. All right. When Joe Valladium and his partner Laura Kelly stepped outside on a July afternoon to walk their dogs at Prince Edward Island, Canada, he wasn't expecting to come home to something out of this world. We were startled to find the walkway littered with debris, stones everywhere. They were scattered everywhere. At first, we had no idea what caused it, Palladium tells NPR. In fact, Palladium thought it was something that fell off the roof and began to clean up the gray, dusty material. Kelly's parents, who lived nearby, told them they had heard a loud bang. They suggested it might have been a meteor strike. Palladium checked his home security footage and realized they were right. The meteorite strike is believed the first time the complete sound of a meteorite hitting Earth has been recorded on video, one expert says. I've heard that other times sound has been recorded, but not like this. When you see the rock hit the surface, shatter, and then you hear the sound at the same time. Chris Hurd, professor and curator of the Meteorite collection at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada, tells NPR. What a cool job, curator of the Meteorite collection. Man, I just wanted to... I always wish I had a cool job like that. I don't do nothing all day, but look at my rocks. Palladium says he was lucky. Just minutes earlier, he had been standing where the meteorite smashed against a brick walkway, so he narrowly missed getting obliterated by this thing, right? It would have probably just gone right through him, right? What happened to him? Ever find anybody just laying there dead and you don't know what happened to him? That might be the cause.
Yeah, that's scary.
I know. He was walking his dog. He was just standing in that very spot. Had I stayed in that very spot for just a minute or two longer, I'd certainly have been struck and probably killed by this meteorite, he said, adding that it hit the ground with a tremendous force and left a small dent in the walkway. Yeah, he would have been a small dent in the walkway. Meteors enter the atmosphere at speeds ranging from 25,000 miles per hour to 160,000 miles per hour, according to the American Meteor Society. Palladium reported the incident to the University of Alberta's meteorite reporting system and Hurd retrieved the debris samples for testing, which confirmed it was a meteorite. The meteorite, which Hurd estimated to have been between the size of a golf ball and a baseball, is what known as an ordinary chondrite. It is what is known as an ordinary chondrite, one of the most common types of meteorites that strike the Earth. They're made up of chondrules, or small spherical grains of silicate minerals, such as olivine and pyroxene. Hurd believes the meteorite that struck Palladium's property. Palladium sounds like a stadium you go to. We're going to the Palladium tonight. Woohoo! Anyway, Hurd believes the meteorite that struck Palladium's property came from an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Yeah, probably a good bet. That's where a lot of our meteorites come from. The meteorite traveled through the cold depths of space at thousands of miles per hour and encountered the hot temperatures through Earth's atmosphere, likely breaking up during the rough ride, Hurd said. At least 48 tons of meteorite-like material fall to Earth every day. Now, think about that. At least 48 tons of meteorite-like material fall to Earth every day, according to NASA.
Let's collect
That's a lot, 48 tons. Right, and we've only got one on camera? That's amazing. The chances of any of that material hitting a human are slim, but there have been other close encounters in the past, like the car incident, for example. Meteorites are more likely to land in water since it covers 71% of the Earth's surface, Hurd said. That's still 29% of Earth isn't covered by water. I just say it. Palladium says the incident initially made him cautious and he looked up whenever he stepped outside. But after some reflection, the experience made him rethink his priorities and what's most important in life, he says. We think our lives are so important when we fill it up with our egos, and there are these cosmic events that just dwarf our little concerns, he says. And this is a tiny little event when it comes down to it in the cosmic scheme of things, but it's such an eye-opener. So there's your meteorites, shit falling out of the sky stories for Weird Wednesday.
Keep your eye on the sky, or don't, because, like you said, it's very unlikely you'll have to worry about it.
Yeah, don't even worry about it, man. If you get hit by a meteorite, man, it was your time.
Yeah,
That's
just accept it.
Just like anything else. Just, I don't know, man. It would be too late to accept it because it would have burned straight through you on its way to the ground.
Okay. Well, my next story is about...
It would be interesting, just an interesting thing to happen, to see what would happen to somebody if they get hit by a meteorite, but I don't think that's happened. So, although if it did happen, nobody was there to see it or verify it.
Yeah, other than maybe you find some meteorite dust in their wound or whatever.
Or the cops just too lazy to look and investigate. A lot of times they don't even investigate these people that are found dead, right? People found dead and they've been dead for weeks and they're bloated and they're disgusting and they're like, get this thing cleaned up and let's get out of here.
There's a video game about that.
Gruesome. Is there? Oh wow, sounds great.
Yeah, it's very, very immersive. Anyways, let's go on to my story, which is
video game.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go on to my story, which is actually quite a long investigation into how France spearheaded a successful effort to dilute EU AI regulation. But we're going to cut it down a little bit because otherwise we'll be sitting here for 10 minutes reading it. The story was produced by Investigate Europe, a cross-border team of journalists based across the continent. The investigation is being published with media partners including Disclose from France, EU Observer from Belgium, which is where we're reading it from, Il Fatto Quotidiano for Italy, Infolibre Spain, Nets Politics Germany, and Publico Portugal, and FSIN for Greece. So it's written by a lot of people, and it's a long investigation. So in a matter of days, governments across the EU will have the power to deploy AI-powered technologies that track citizens in public spaces, conduct real-time surveillance to monitor refugees in border zones, and use facial recognition to influence people based on their suspected political affiliations or religious beliefs. Sounds a bit dystopian, doesn't it? These are just some of the loopholes and national security exemptions forced through in the European Artificial Intelligence Act, the world's first set of laws targeting the sector. While all of these things won't happen too soon, several controversial parts of the regulation will take effect from the 2nd of February 2025, thanks in part to a secret lobbying by France and a host of European states. Internal documents obtained from the negotiations by Investigate Europe reveal member states successfully campaigned to dilute measures, giving police and border authorities, among others, greater freedoms to covertly monitor citizens. Investigate Europe analyzed more than 100 documents from behind closed-door meetings of ambassadors from the 27 member states of the EU, the so-called Coreper, in the EU Council, and spoke to multiple sources present at the negotiations. These meetings and minutes accounts from across the political spectrum detail how France strategically engineered amendments to the regulation. The use of AI in public spaces is broadly prohibited under the Act, but changes pushed by the French President Emmanuel Macron, I knew this guy was bad, administration and others, mean the law enforcement and border officials will have the ability to bypass the ban. Yeah, we love a police state, especially as the world is slowly dying around us. Let's just go full-on police state, baby. When EU ambassadors met on the 18th of November 2022, France's representative was unequivocal about the country's wishes. The exclusion of security and defense must be maintained at all costs. At a later meeting, Italy, Hungary, Romania, Sweden, and the Czech Republic, and Lithuania, Finland, and Bulgaria all expressed support for the French position. This battle was one of the toughest and we lost it, reflected a source in the European Parliament involved in negotiations who asked to remain anonymous. In practice, these exemptions would also cover private companies or possibly third countries that provide the AI-powered technology to police and law enforcement agencies. The text stipulates that surveillance is allowed regardless of the entity carrying out those activities. So we can survey you and whoever it is allowed. So they could be selling your privacy to third parties right now, well, I guess on the 2nd of February. Exemptions also go against the rulings from the European Court of Justice in 2020 and 2022, says Zavra Bogiatzoglu, a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Amsterdam. The judgments found French telecommunication companies had breached EU law by retaining customer data on national security grounds. We're going to keep all your data because we need it for national security. Yeah, that's what we need it for. So you can't tell us to delete your data. France's private lobbying in the EU Council meeting mirrors its public push to exploit those technologies. In May 2023, the country's constitutional court sanctioned the use of AI-powered video surveillance during the Paris Olympics. The move was the first of its kind in the EU and described a serious threat to civic freedoms and democratic principles by Amnesty International. Now such methods could be rolled out across the bloc. The final agreed AI Act, first presented by a European Commission in April 2021 and fought over from the start, has become littered with exceptions. The use of emotional recognition system, technology that interpret people's moods or feelings, is very similar to a film you may have heard of Minority Report, where they decide, hey, that person's gonna murder somebody because we used a magic person in some pool water to determine the future. So now they're gonna start, or also, what is the other? There's an anime about this too. They just read your emotions and they know exactly you're gonna commit a crime. That's what they're trying to say here. It has been banned from workplaces, schools, and universities. Companies will be prohibited from tracking customers in stores to analyze buying intentions, for example, or employees cannot use the systems to scrutinize the staff or are happy or unlikely to leave. You don't seem like you're enjoying working here. We're firing you on that premise alone. But thanks in part to lobbying by France and member states, the systems are permitted for all police forces and immigration and border authorities. It is still not clear whether the systems will also be allowed for recruitment personnel, for example, companies to assess applicants for a job. I was trying to get a visa to enter France, but according to their behavioral AI system, I look like a murderer, so now I'm not allowed in. During a meeting in 29th of November 2023, Denmark's ambassador said that any ban must be appropriate and should only apply if there's a risk of discrimination. Netherlands, Portugal, and Slovakia took similar stances in the meeting, with all generally critical of widening prohibitions to include law enforcement. But France again was a driving force. A document sent in 24th of November 2023 by the French government to the European Council said it was very important to preserve the possibility of searching for a person expressing a religious belief or political opinion, such as the wearing of a badge or accessory, when that person is involved in a violent extremism or presents a terrorist risk. That person is a Muslim. They must be a terrorist. Wow, very French. Honestly, France has always had that problem. For a very long time, they've had that problem. Moreover, facial recognition software can be used in real time if strictly necessary for law enforcement. I love phrases like strictly necessary because that means anything. I decided it was necessary strictly on my own opinion. Greece, a country at the forefront of migrant arrivals to Europe in recent years, was another in favor of this change. In the same meeting, its ambassador demanded an explicit exclusion for prisons and border zones for any ban, lobbying for authorities to have the power to conduct real-time biometric analysis in public spaces on citizens and refugees and asylum seekers. Biometric systems could now be deployed to survey millions of faces and cross-check against national database to identify individuals. Wow, another reason for me never to leave the house. Use of the technology in public spaces means the end of anonymity in those places, the European Digital Rights Network warned back in 2020. Another loophole carved out and concerns predictive policing, the ability of an algorithm to predict who will commit a crime. Spain, which held the presidency of the European Council as the negotiation neared its end late in 2023, already uses predictive policing algorithms. It is the only EU country to admit doing so, along with the Netherlands. When the final trialogue between the Council, the Parliament, and the Commission began on 6th of December 2023, the Spanish presidency was eager to finalize the text prior to the European elections and the anticipated rise of the far-right parties, and before Viktor Orban's Hungary took the presidency 6 months later. Now, reminder, keep that key there. So, we have people who, from probably their point of view, want to police citizens because they want to keep everyone safe. And then you have a rise in the far right and people who want to be like Russia getting access to those tools that are currently policing citizens and immigrants and asylum seekers or whatever. So you're putting these powerful tools in the hands of fascists who are just going to use them for terrible means. And that's where they didn't think, right? France was thinking about their own national security when they should have been thinking about, wait a minute, what if a far-right person gets a hand on these? That's bad. Negotiators were locked in a room for a day and a half, and officials present at the discussions who requested anonymity recalled, "We were exhausted, and only after a night of negotiations did we stop talking about the prohibitions at 6 a.m. In the end, we achieved that every product would be authorized by an independent national authority." Yeah, self-certification, that never goes wrong. An internal working document from the European Parliament Legal Service obtained by Investigate Europe questioned the decision. A high level of subjectivity left to companies, which appears to be in contrast with the general aim of the AI Act to address the risk of harm posed by high-risk AI systems. The need to keep corporate interest on the side has concerned member states, notably France, which is home to a number of leading companies, including Mistral AI. The French government did not respond to requests to comment by the time of the publication, nor did governments of Greece, Portugal, or Italy. Only time will tell how the AI Act will be implemented. Ton Ecker, a Dutch lawyer for digital rights, believes the exemptions will have little impact in practice. I am very critical about the use of algorithms by a state. However, the narrative to say that because there are exceptions, then things are allowed is not correct. There are many national constitutional laws protecting fundamental rights. Professor Rosamund van Brakel, who teaches legal, ethical, and social issues of AI at the Vrije Universiteit Brussels, however, says national accountability mechanisms do not bring much solace to those impacted by the technologies. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing people have been saying for years about, hey, they can't deport me. I'm a citizen of the United States. Okay, well, what if they lose your paperwork and burn your passport document? Are you still a citizen now? And the same thing happens here. If the government wants to break their own laws, they will, and they don't care if it impacts your fundamental rights. In most cases, regulation and oversight only kicks in after the violation has taken place. They do not protect us before, she said. Moreover, AI applications used in the public sector often affect vulnerable populations who are not empowered to launch a complaint or trust that a complaint will be taken seriously. So, there you go. The first AI Act ever passed in the world, and it's kind of a bust because of France and also Greece and Italy, who helped just cut away at anything useful so that they could get their little fingers in and use the great old cop defense to do whatever they want. Wacky and weird world we live in.
The laws.
Yeah. That's my story.
Okay, more stories about police. This one is involving their seizure of drugs, and particularly this story, as I read it, seems to be about marijuana, which isn't even illegal in most states. But in Texas and Louisiana, well, they're behind the time. So this is from UPI.com. Ben Hooper, it says drug-addicted rats, which is silly because they're talking about marijuana. Anyway, drug-addicted rats destroying evidence in Houston police lockers. Police and city officials in Houston and evidence storage lockers, they say evidence in storage lockers is being destroyed by drug-addicted rats. Maybe they're just hungry rats.
They're addicted to drugs.
By the way, if you store marijuana more than 6 months, absolutely they're not storing it properly. They're just letting it dry out in some evidence room.
In a baggie.
It has no potency. After about a year, it's basically just
tea.
It might as well just be flour. It might as well be tea, right?
You just put it in your water.
And it doesn't get.
It tastes like nothing.
Even stored properly, it loses 25% of its potency after a year. And I guarantee you they're not storing it properly. So the fact that they're thinking this is drugs anymore, it's not. It's just a pile of leaves and buds and flowers that used to be possibly potent. But again, cops aren't exactly drug experts. They just arrest people. Mayor John Whitmire said in the news conference that drugs being stored at evidence lockers are attracting rats that feast on illicit narcotics and cause damage to other evidence in the process. We got 400,000 pounds of marijuana in storage that the rats are the only ones enjoying. Again, like I said, they're not eating it for the drugs, they're eating it for the protein. Sorry, folks. The mayor announced the start of the initiative in partnership with the Harris County District Attorney offices to organize the 1.2 million pieces of evidence stored by the city and discard any drugs stored since before 2015. If you've had a bag of pot in there for 10 years, it is just nothing anymore.
Who cares?
It's a pile of dust. Like, it's not a harmful drug at all, and this shouldn't be illegal. Don't know why you're still keeping it illegal, Texas. Because you're Texas and you have no logic in that entire state. The state with no snowplows. Oh, you know who had to borrow snowplows? Getting sidetracked here. We talked about this before, how Texas doesn't have snowplows and they won't even borrow snowplows. Hey, Louisiana yesterday borrowed snowplows from Indiana. Yeah. You can borrow snowplows from other states, and they'll let them to you. Indiana's like, we got no snow here. Use our snowplows. And Louisiana said, bring them. Texas won't do that. Texas is stubborn. Anyway, back to Texas being stubborn. So much evidence is kept and stored that is no longer needed, that has no impact on the resolution of that charge, that conviction, or even that innocence, Whitmire said. Yeah, you're storing these drugs for no good reason to begin with. Peter Stout, head of the Houston Forensic Science Center, said that the same news conference that the large amounts of narcotics evidence stored by the city is putting other unrelated evidence in danger. Legalize it. This is obviously a case where you just need to legalize it. They're talking about, when the story said drugs, I thought they were talking about actual drugs.
Yeah.
Not marijuana. They're edible. They're tasty. They're all kinds of things. You can't store a large quantity of drugs without expecting some of these things to happen, Stout said. He said police have hired exterminators, but the rodent problem has proven persistent. They're drug-addicted rats. They're tough to deal with. Dude, if you had 400,000 pounds of anything being stored, cheese, baked goods, right? Don't you think the rats would be into that? Are you going to call them drug-addicted rats because they like cheese? No.
That's so funny to call them.
These people are idiots.
Yeah, it's so funny to call them drug-addicted rats.
They're just eating, dude. They're eating food.
They're eating plant
You don't
matter.
think it's food.
Yeah.
The rats do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're eating plants. What's wrong with you, man? Oh, they're getting really high. They might be getting a buzz. It's possible they're getting a buzz, but I doubt it. Something's been there 10 years. It's no longer active. The THC's not been active for 8 years. Anyway, officials said only one active case has been affected by the rat problem. They said rodents managed to get into a bag containing hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Okay, there you go. That might
Now,
do
we
something.
don't know how potent those were either. Yeah, we still don't know how potent they are. They got to be stored right. The problem is not limited to the city of Houston. New Orleans Police Department, another state that makes marijuana illegal, is Louisiana. Dumbasses. New Orleans Police Department officials said in March 24 that drug evidence was under assault from pests including rats and cockroaches. The rats eating our marijuana, they're all high, Police Superintendent Ian Kirkpatrick said in the meeting of City Council's Criminal Justice Committee. Yeah, they possibly are high because rats are tiny and it doesn't take probably a lot to get them high. But they probably just like the taste. You ever think of that? They probably just like the taste. Because, like we say, if you don't store weed even for a month properly, it's going to dry out and be useless. On to our next story about animals and the weird things people are doing. Genetically, this is from getpocket.com, Carolyn Delbert. Genetically modified pigs might save your life. In 2020, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the second ever genetically modified subtype of pig for human consumption. At that time, there was no plans to raise this pig for meat or other foodstuffs, but a much, much cooler use case was in store. By adjusting the pig's genes so it doesn't produce a particular sugar called galactose alpha-1, 3-galactose alpha-gal. I don't know what any of that meant. Anyway, scientists can make medicines that are safe for a group of people who suffer from a peculiar, little understood allergy. And while this certification isn't planned for meat, that could be next. Let's dig into the wild world of the tick-induced meat allergy to the alpha-gal sugar. The alpha-gal-free pig was one of the express purposes for now to develop medical products like blood thinners that won't set off adverse reactions. That's according to the company behind the pig, United Therapeutics Corp, which has a long history with pigs for therapeutic products such as genetically modified pig lungs for human use, for example. Pigs are up to 90% more compatible with similar human organ systems, with the consequences from actual physical organs to the byproducts of them like insulin and blood thinners. United Therapeutics Corp has a proprietary process for snipping the DNA, but an industry observer said it likely works by removing the gene that makes alpha-gal and stancing. stanching. Okay. Another word I never heard of before. But industry observers says it likely works by removing the gene that makes alpha-gal and stanching that space with a blank genetic placeholder instead, AP reports. The group of people who have had alpha-gal allergy is small, with estimates between a few hundred and about 5,000, but for that group, lack of access to the products like medications, medical devices, and vaccines could be deadly. It's a good reason to try out a specific genetic modification of this kind. What's the deal with alpha-gal allergies? The public radio science show Radiolab told one woman's story in 2016. It was in the emergency room like... Okay, let's do this again. I was in the emergency room like they were shooting me full of I don't know what. Epinephrine and adrenaline and the little like 12-year-old emergency room doctor runs in. 12-year-old emergency room doctor runs in and he was like, I looked it up on the internet, alpha-gal, fascinating. Then when I went back to my doctor after that, I was like, hey, I just got out of the emergency room because they tested me for alpha-gal and I'm allergic to meat. So this is just some person in some story claiming that the doctor was 12 years old, which is silliness. I'm sorry I read that sentence. It made me stupider. Anyway, the allergy still isn't well understood, but it's caused by tick-borne illnesses. In Radiolab's case, the patient had Rocky Mountain spotted fever. After bitten by a tick, her dog brought it to the house. Researchers hope to understand how they blame the dog for the tick, right? Like she couldn't have got it on herself. Give me a break. Anyway, researchers hope to understand the mechanism better, but people with the allergy are still a potentially devoted market for very specific products. Think about the number of specialty pet foods for animals with allergies to certain proteins. For humans with similar devastating food allergies, a pig with a vanquished allergen could mean better options and easier decisions. So, I don't know. They don't really get into the story, in spite of it being kind of poorly written. Really didn't get into the part about raising the pigs for meat, even though she raised the possibility. There's your story.
Yeah.
About pigs and rats eating stuff and the evidence lockers and pigs that are genetically modified, so we can figure out why humans have meat allergies and create drugs to get around that problem. Back to you.
Yeah, drugs. All right. Let's go to my next story, our culture segment, I should say. And we're going to look at art, specifically arts of decadence. First, famously, a lot of art about like the Roman Empire includes this decadence of just, getting drunk, having sex all over the place, and having jewel-laden tortoises. This is from Jonathan Jones on The Guardian. We are decadent. It's obvious. Look around you. Books have been replaced by screens. Restaurants are bigger cultural vets than art, though they are too dying. And our highest cultural temple is a reality TV show. Western civilization is being destroyed by its own decadence, ran a Daily Telegraph headline last year. In this book, The Decadent Society, American journalist Ross Douthat argues that the U.S. has been in decline ever since Neil Armstrong got back from the moon. And conservative provocateur Michael Hellebeck made the decadence of the West a pervasive theme of his novels, including the most recent Annihilation, which was received for Christmas by reading through twinkling tree lights, is a bleak vision gradually sapping the festive spirit. So now, let's go and tell all about decadence. A French civil servant returning to his teenage bedroom sees his old posters for the Matrix Revolution, and it all comes flooding back. He was obsessed with that film in 2003. He remembers, but his younger sister Cecil and her generation had other fandoms. Not Nirvana now, but Radiohead, and not The Matrix, but Lord of the Rings. For only 2 years between them, but that might have been enough to explain the difference. Things still moved quite quickly in those days, much less quickly than they did in the 1960s. Of course, even in the 1970s, the declaration and immobilization of the West, heralding its annihilation, had been progressive. Beck, with his limitless melancholy, gives the West's doom an unexpected pop culture twist here, seeing nothing short of abyss in the declaration of teen trends since the days when Neo gave way to Gandalf. But the deceleration and immobilization of Western culture, as he means, is the relative lack of truly new trends, ideas, and movements compared with 50 or 60 years ago. While the 1960s produced Bob Dylan, we have Timothy Chalamet playing him. Chalamet, sorry. If you wanted to take this further, you could argue that visual art is repeating ideas first advanced by Marcel Duchamp before the First World War, and that even theoretical physics, as the theoretical physicist Lee Smolin argues in his book The Trouble with Physics, is just retreading the discoveries of Einstein and Heisenberg made a century ago. But is there really such a steep decline and slowdown in the culture? To stay with Houellebecq's use of cinema as an example, that he recently rewatched the film Van Helsing after seeing the new remake of Nosferatu. If there are to be taken any symptoms of cultural health, you'd have to say civilization has improved a lot in the last 2 decades. For Nosferatu has so much more belief in the art of film. On the other hand, both are vastly inferior to F.W. Murnau's original Nosferatu. Therefore, presumably, the civilization of Germany, when it was released in 1922, was much greater than ours. But wait, wasn't that the decadent Weimar Republic, where people fiddled with each other while democracy burned? The idea that a culture can be decadent is an entertaining but empty myth, one that makes assumptions about culture and history that are much less intelligent than they seem. At the heart of it, it's the idea that an entire society or way of life can be diseased. It's an organic image that takes the social body literally, and looking for symptoms of malaise in the vast body tends to see them in sexual behavior. That's how we picture the most infamous example of civilization that supposedly brought it from within, the Roman Empire. In his 1847 painting, Romans and Their Decadence, the French artist Thomas Couture fills a huge canvas with sensual Romans indulging themselves. A woman on a couch languorously recovers from her pleasure at the center of the orgy, while couples embrace all around her. These bacchanals are framed by the virtuous straight lines of classical columns. The classical order, the rational virtue, represents ancient civilization itself, but here we see the start of its voluptuous ruin. And Roman decadence is still box office. Gladiator 2, Rome has declined to the point of having no one but 2 psychopathic emperors prancing around murderously in the interiors, whose design and lighting owes much to Couture's contemporary, the history painter Jean-Léon Gérôme. It shows how confused the idea of decadence is itself. According to Houellebecq, Smolin, or anyone who equates decline with deceleration or lack of intellectual novelty, could be a failing. In the ancient world, on the contrary, the classical style was judged perfect, therefore timeless. You couldn't build anything better than a temple with a column portico, or write anything better than Virgil's Aeneid. So, change could only be for the worse. The very lack of innovation that some see today as decadence was praised by previous ages as stability, balance, and harmony. Nor is that only a Western view. Most civilizations have sought to triumph over the passage of time, from Buddhism aspiring to nirvana to pre-communist China preserving its empire in reverence for their ancestors. The classical idea that continuity in culture's highest goal was so pervasive in pre-modern times that in order to break from it, the 19th century avant-garde had to explicitly embrace decadence. The choice was between living in an ordered, unchanging world or being branded decadent. French poets and artists chose the latter. Couture taught Edouard Manet, the painter of sleazy modern life, and the friend of writers including Baudelaire and Mallarmé, who embraced decadence. The French decadent poets wallowed in loutish sexuality, alcoholic and psychedelic experiences, as they invented new kinds of writing that could describe the wild unpredictability of modern existence. Baudelaire's poem, A Carcass, literally delights in the decay. Remember the object that we saw, my love, he begins, before going on to describe the sight of a rotting donkey, its legs in the air like a lubricious woman. A shared experience he remembers as profoundly erotic. Is that decadent? Absolutely. Did it bring down France? No. It inaugurated the golden age of French culture that gave birth to modern art. The ideal of decadence was popularized most outrageously by Joris Karl Huymans' 1884 novel Against Nature, A Rebours. Its hero insulates itself from reality by drinking strangely colored liqueurs and encrusting the shell of his pet tortoise with jewels, the weights that kill it. It's the favorite book of Oscar Wilde's Dorian Gray, decadence having quickly spread from Paris to late Victorian Britain. Wilde, Aubrey Beardsley, and the Yellow Book hurled their expediently decadent ways in the face of their elders. Decadence, in other words, is just another word for being modern. So, in fact, critics of Western decadence miss the painfully obvious fact that there is nothing that is more truly Western or historically hallowed. There's no evidence that decadence ever brought a civilization down. Yet, there's ample evidence that it's a social liberating, culturally creative force that has generated much of the greatest art, literature, and music of the past 100 years. Hollaback himself may be proof of that himself, for this compelling writer has a very ambiguous relationship with decadence. While he mourns a civilization he believes to be in decline, he is consciously influenced by the 19th century French decadent writers. His most infamous novel, Submission, is in fact partly a homage to the decadent novelist Hugues Mons. The narrator is a literary academic who specializes in him, and who starts the novel by saying, "Through all the years of my sad youth, Hugues Mons remains a companion, a faithful friend." He goes on to cite Emile Zola's complaint that character and action against nature don't go anywhere, they're frozen, which is also a good description of the way Hollaback writes. His stunning serotonin is deliberately as static as against nature. In Annihilation, which has much more plot, civil servant Paul's niece is doing a PhD on French decadent writers. She's funding it with sex work, as he discovers by accident when he calls on her services. Ugh, is that okay? Clearly not. Hollaback shoves his grossness into your head along with his despair and demonic brew that may even be poisonous. How decadent is that? He is the unhealthiest and best of today's serious novelist. Meanwhile, at the National Theatre in London, Polkadot is playing the piano in a peak satin gown, opening a panto-esque production of The Importance of Being Earnest, that joyously rips the surface of Wilde's play to reveal every subtextual subversion. Is that decadent? Are we? Let's hope so. So, thankfully, if you didn't understand that very long, drawn-out explanation from Jonathan Jones, he's saying decadence is good. We should be changing. We should be evolving. If we stay the same and we have balance in nature, we're just bored. And we die. In our souls, we die. Yep. If nothing's interesting, we don't care. And that's kind of what's happening. That's how fascism takes over. Everyone's bored. They get rid of art. Nobody can express themselves. Everyone is just the same guy. Copy and paste it over and over again. And they all listen to me, the dictator guy who tells you what to do.
Not right. Decadence is all in the eye of the beholder. It's all subjective.
Yeah, that's true as well.
It's a nebulous term. It doesn't really mean anything. It's what you apply it to, right? Mm-hmm. For some people, eating too much ice cream is decadence, right?
Yeah, that's not an
really
orgy. Nothing like an orgy.
Scoops of ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get really decadent and wear short pants today.
That's my story, or I guess
this day in history, right?
My dissertation on decadence.
On to this day in history, right? Where history is replete with real decadence. However, we're going back to 1561, and Francis Bacon was born in York House, London. British statesman and philosopher, was part of a theory, at least back in the 1800s. There was a theory that Francis Bacon wrote William Shakespeare's works because of his political philosophies. But no proof was ever given, just some people surmising, hey, they lived at the same time. He said kind of the same kind of stuff that you see in Shakespearean plays. He must have written them. Okay, that's a leap of logic. But anyway, Francis Bacon's birthday today. In 1849, Swedish playwright, novelist, and short story writer August Strindberg was born in. He combined psychology and naturalism in a new kind of European drama and evolved into expressionist drama. So happy birthday to him. 1898, Sergei Eisenstein, a Russian film director and theorist known for his classics as Potemkin, Alexander Nevsky, and Ivan the Terrible, was released in two parts anyway. Anyway, it's his birthday. Serge Adelstein's birthday. Happy birthday. In 1901, Queen Victoria passed away, ending the Victorian age. Her reign was more than 60 years, during which time the British Empire reached the apex of its power. The longest, actually, reign of any monarch in England's history, until the last one, who was there for even longer. Elizabeth II, who was there from 1953 or something until last year. So that was a long time. You do the math. I don't know what the math is. It's 70 years, something like that. 1904, influential ballet choreographer George Balanchine was born in St. Petersburg. I believe that's St. Petersburg, Russia, and not Florida. In 1905, on what was later known as Bloody Sunday, Russian workers marching in St. Petersburg again were fired upon by Russian troops. So it was probably because of the 1-year anniversary of ballet choreographer George Balanchine. And 1 year after he was born, Russian workers were shot in St. Petersburg. In 1931, American singer and songwriter Sam Cooke was born, one of the most influential black vocalists of the post-World War II area. He was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi, right by the crossroads. My goodness. Clarksdale, famous for having the crossroads, where supposedly Robert Johnson got his guitar playing for the devil.
That's where you met him, right there.
Another thing Sam Cooke and Robert Johnson have in common, Sam Cooke was killed by he was shot by a woman. Sam Cooke was shot to death by a woman, and Robert Johnson was poisoned, possibly by a woman. Nobody really knows, but he was poisoned maybe by a jealous husband. But either way, they both were brought to premature ends by jealous people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
In 1943, all Japanese resistance in Papua, the island of New Guinea, site of the important Allied base of Port Moresby, ceased. So in 1943, the Japanese were vanquished, I guess, in New Guinea, and Papua New Guinea, sorry. In 1992, serving as a payload specialist aboard the Discovery space shuttle, Roberta Bondar became the first Canadian woman and the first neurologist to travel into space. First Canadian woman I can see celebrating that. First neurologist? I mean, what's a neurologist? Most people don't even know. So, I think another thing is like, the first dentist in the space, right? The first plumber in the space. Let's do that, right? 1998, one of the most notorious domestic terrorists in U.S. history, Theodore Kaczynski, the so-called Unabomber, was sentenced to 4 terms in life prison without parole. He died in prison. The so-called Unabomber killed 3 people and injured 22 in 60 attacks between 79 and 95. So, rotten piece, old Unabomber piece of shit. Killing innocent people because you don't like technology.
Yeah,
wow,
let's celebrate
really
that.
Point home, didn't it, moron? Guy was sending letter bombs all over the place. Sending letter bombs all over the place to innocent people. Postal workers got killed. Oh, what a genius. Yeah, what a piece of shit. Anyway, 2006, Evo Morales, a member of the Aymara indigenous group, was sworn in as the president of Bolivia, becoming the first Indian to hold the office. Good stuff there. Go Bolivia. Struggling with ratings in 2010. Struggling with ratings. Conan O'Brien left The Tonight Show. He was fired from The Tonight Show by Jay Leno, but it says he left The Tonight Show. He left as soon as he was fired. It's like, I left my last job. Yeah, he left it. Give me a break. Anyway, after hosting his last episode of the late night television program. So in 2010, Jay Leno's ego got the better of him. He thought he was a better talk show host than Conan O'Brien and took his place. And of course, Jay Leno was nowhere near as good as talk show host as Conan O'Brien. Not even close.
It was what an incredibly terrible, just L. Big L. taken there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just bad. I don't think the night show's recovered, actually. 2012, Joe Paterno passed away, who's the head coach of Penn State football. He was one of the most successful coaches in the history of college football, but whose final seasons were overshadowed by a sex abuse scandal involving his former assistant coach. Yeah, his assistant coach, Jerry Sandusky, was a perv, and he was molesting college-age students. What a guy. 2018, American writer Ursula K. Le Guin died at the age of 88. She was known for the tales of science fiction and fantasy imbued with concern for character development and language. Well, that's important. Character development. Who wants to read a story where the characters are all two-dimensional or even one-dimensional? In 2021, Hank Aaron passed away. He died at the age of 86. Baseball player Hank Aaron, one of the world's greatest all-time hitters. Hammer and Hank passed away this day, 2021. Also, our featured event today is the 1973 Roe versus Wade. Yes, on this day, in 1973, U.S. Supreme Court issued one of its most momentous decisions, ruling in Roe versus Wade that Texas statute criminalizing abortion in most instances violated a woman's constitutional right of privacy. They totally got that right, but of course, that set into motion a bunch of fascists deciding that they were going to get that overturned, and they succeeded. Because they got a Supreme Court that decided that we're not even going to talk about case law, we're going to make law. They're inventing cases that don't exist so they can make law, which is complete horseshit. Not the Supreme Court's job, but they're doing it anyway. And our featured biography is Lord Byron. Speaking of British poets, we talked about Shakespeare earlier. Lord Byron, British poet, was born on this day, January 22nd, 1788. And he died only 36 years later, April 19, 1824, in Macedonian, Greece, and he was born in England. He was born in 1788, died in 1824. Not a very long life for Lord Byron.
No.
Not very long at all. You figure if you're a lord, you get to live a bit longer, but nope. Other birthdays today, Grigory Rasputin, the famous Russian monk, born in 1869, had birthday to Rasputin. We covered Sam Cooke, and we covered Lord Byron. John Hurt's birthday today, British actor, and American director Jim Jarmusch is his birthday today. He was born in 1953. John Hurt, of course, born in 1940. We didn't put that part in. The national days today as we get to wrap the show. The National Sanctity of Human Life Day. What a coincidence. It's the same day Roe versus Wade was passed. Somebody decided, the sanctity of life. Sanctity of life. Blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of horse shit. Sanctity of life. The people that believe in sanctity of life are the same people that will send your kid to war.
Yeah.
Just make sure you know that. The sanctity of life is invented. It's not a thing. 20,000 children are starving to death today. 20,000 are going to die from starvation today. And we get up in the morning and act like God smiled upon us. Well, what the hell else has God got to do, right? He isn't saving anybody's life. So sanctity of life, totally invented. As George Carlin said, we had totally look at life from a selfish point of view. Dead people don't care about life. They don't care. They don't care at all. Only living people care. Do you notice that? And it's also the celebration of life today. So you're talking about the sanctity, you better be celebrating it. By the way, Roe versus Wade has nothing to do with life, okay? It has to do with, I don't want to be pregnant right now, okay? That's what it has to do with. And I don't want to have a family right now. I can't afford it. And once again, rich people will never go to jail for abortions. Ever. Every law ever passed in the history of laws are only for poor people. And for punishing poor people. And for feeding the prison industrial complex. National Blondie Brownie Day. Sorry for the diatribe, but not sorry. National Blondie Brownie Day today, so any kind of brownie is probably good. It's Library Shelfie Day, not selfie, but Shelfie Day. So I guess we're just going to get familiar with our organizing our libraries. That's what we're going to do. And it's National Polkadot Day. So those are your days, those are your stories. January 22nd, 2025 on before Blonde Brownies.
All right, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands and Roger from the west coast of the US as we tie up today's Wacky and Weird Wednesday with our Wacky and Weird. A lot of things happened today in the history as well in this day in history. So many things. I hope to see you guys tomorrow for our Thursday 13. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and make it weird and make it wacky. Just don't do any crimes, please. Don't kidnap babies or, I don't know, feed weed to rats. And we will see you.
And look up for those meteorites.
Yeah, don't, because it's very unlikely you'll ever get hit by a meteorite. Speaking of which, let's go to our mic drop moment here. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and let's go. Very
All
short.
Right, here it goes.
Catch
happens
it.
Fast. Got to be ready for
Happens
it.
fast and happens very loudly. Good thing they drew a circle there. That's it.
Circles. A couple
Slow motion.
of frames, you could see it.
It broke the sound barrier.
Pretty good size rock.
Yeah.
Like a baseball size rock.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.